Welcome to this first lesson where we are going to look at the first chapter in my new book, The Call of Jesus. I have done this book and I'm doing these videos to help you. I want to help you to come in and live the life Jesus has for you. I will sometimes provoke you, I will really challenge you, and I want you to start to think. I will also try to give you some practical tools how you best can obey the call Jesus has given you and how you can bear good fruit for Him. You know that time is very, very short. It's time for us to wake up. It's time to be radical. We have done it our way. Now it's time to stop doing it our way and start to do it His way. We need to do it the way Jesus has called us to do it. The first chapter in my book is called Christ, Mission and the Church. In this chapter we are looking at what our call is. Some years ago I came in a church setting where there was a lot of focus on finding our personal call. What is our call? What is my call? What do God want me to do? What is our specific call as a church? And it was actually something we spent a lot of time on at that time. And it was like every person have their own specific call. Every church have their own specific vision. We focus a lot on finding the person's vision from the church or call from the church, and our focus, what is my call? Like, what do God want me to do? Do God want me to be a worship leader? Do God want me to be a businessman? What is my call? But where do we find all of that in the Bible? Where do we find in the Bible that we in that way have specific calls and things we should do that is different from what Christ is saying? And that is the problem, that we focus so much at that time on our call and our vision that we actually forgot looking at what it is Jesus was saying. Yes, you can maybe feel that you are called to be a worship leader. You can feel that you are called to be a businessman, but you still need to obey Christ. It's all about Him. It's no matter what church you are part of, no matter what your call and vision is, your call and vision should not be different than what we read in the Word of God. Jesus is not only our Savior, but He's our focus. He's our goal in life. As I said some years ago, I was busy finding my call. I was busy trying to define the call from our church. Now I'm free from all of this. I am so free from all of this. Now it's just Jesus. My goal is to obey Him, His words, and my vision, my call is what I read in the Bible, nothing else. Now it's not what I'm called to, it's not what I want to do, it's Jesus, what are you saying in your word? And then I will do it the way you are calling me to do it. Matthew 7:24-27 is saying this. Therefore, everyone who hears these words of mine and put them into practice is like a wise man who built his house on the rock. The rain came down, the stream rose, and the wind blew and beat against the house. Yea, it did not fall, because he had his foundation on the rock. But everyone who hears these words of mine and does not put them into practice is like a foolish man who built his house on sand. The rain came down, the stream rose, and the wind blew and beat against the house, and it fell with a big crash. What we read here in Matthew 7 is, it's not about hearing the word, it's about putting the word into practice. It's about obeying the word. So it's not enough that you hear Jesus' word. You don't build on the rock by sitting in church and listen to the word or by reading the word. You need to obey it. We need to do what it is Jesus is saying. And so it is really not about just having a faith. in that sense. It's not about coming to church and listening Sunday after Sunday. No, we need to obey. Not our church tradition, not our own vision, not our own call, but we need to obey Jesus' word. And it's so clear. And let's listen to what Jesus is saying and then do it. It's so simple. Let's listen to what he's saying and then obey what he's saying. And if you are doing that, it's not only going to transform your life, it's also going to transform the life of all of those people around you. If we look at the church today, there's three big subjects we can talk about. If I use big words, there is ecclesiology, missiology, and Christology. If you've not heard those three words before, it's very simple. Christology is teaching about Christ, missiology is teaching about mission, and ecclesiology is teaching about church. So we have those three things. We have Christ, mission, and church. But which one of those three come first? Let me read something from my book. There are three big subjects in the Bible that people speak about today. Ecclesiology, missiology, and Christology. Ecclesiology, missiology, and Christology include teaching about the church, teaching about mission, and teaching about Christ. My question is, which of these three subjects should come first in our life? If we look at the church today, we find it often places its focus around the teaching of the church. The next teaching the church focuses on is the mission, and then lastly is focus on the teaching of Jesus. I admit that some years ago I focused so much on teaching about the church that I forgot the most important teaching at all, Jesus. Of course, I did not stand in the church platform and said that I forgot Jesus. I did not even realize at that time that I had forgotten him, because everything I was doing was because of him. I was building the church because of him. I did the mission because of him. But I realized how my focus was wrong. If we are honest, I believe a lot of us have forgotten the most important thing. We have forgotten to spend time with Jesus. We have forgotten to focus on what he's saying in his word. It is all about Jesus, about what he is saying in his word, and about how we want to do his mission. From this focus on Jesus first and how he wants us to do mission, second, the teaching of the church would arrive third. Yes, I want to say that what we read here is really a big problem in the church today. And maybe you don't see it, but when you start to see it, you just see how far away we have come from Jesus and his words. If we look at many churches today, many in the church are so busy serving Jesus. They are so busy with church activities, they are so busy with meetings, they are so busy with so many different things. But in serving Jesus, they have actually forgot Jesus. They have forgot to sit down and read what is it actually Jesus is saying in his word. What is it Jesus wants us to do? It should start with Jesus. It should not start with church and be busy to build our church. It should start with Jesus. And then when we look at Jesus, what is it Jesus is saying? Then the way we do mission will be very different. The way we will serve is very different. Why? Because we don't serve out of our church tradition. We serve out of Jesus and his word. So first, Jesus. Look at him. Look at what Jesus is saying and how he wants us to obey him and do mission. And then second, we do mission. The way Jesus called us to. And then third, we end up with church. And then it's going to be Jesus' church. It's going to be a church that looks so different than what we see in the churches today. The last year here in America, I have met many different churches. I've been all over and been in many meetings. And most of those churches I've gone to, they all look the same. They have a building, they have the pews, they have the church meeting, the worship meeting. It's the same songs they're singing. It's the same idea. We come together and we want people to go out and invite friends and neighbors to come to church, and hopefully some of them will get born again. Almost everything looks the same, and we all do it for Jesus. But have we ever taken the time to stop up and look at what it actually is Jesus is saying? What is it Jesus he wants us to do? Do Jesus talk about that we should do church the way we do it? Do Jesus talk about that we should have a church building and gather people, and then hopefully the Christians, non-believers will come into our church and get saved? Or did Jesus do it very different? Also, when Jesus said, "Come and follow me and I will make you fisher of men," he did not just sit down with them and met every Sunday and then did a teaching. No, he walked with them. He was building them up. He was making them to be disciples. The problem today is that we are so focused on our church, on how we do church. And that is built on tradition. That is built on tradition of man. That is built of a church culture. And then out of that box, we then try to do mission. And as I said, that mission very often looked like we need to have very nice meetings, and then if we have the right meetings, the nice meetings, people want to come to our church. And then we get people come to our church very often from other churches. And we don't come together and train people the way we are supposed to. We don't come together and make disciples the way we are supposed to, and let those disciples go out in the harvest that is ready and see the harvest saved, see the people changed. So yes, we are so busy often with church, with mission, that we forget Jesus, all of that. And I have been guilty in that myself. Let's stop doing what we are doing. Let's change the way we are doing, and then really try to take the time to look at what Jesus is saying. What do Jesus say? What do Jesus want us to do? Again, where do you find the fine church building in Jesus' word? Where do you find Sunday meeting where people come Sunday after Sunday and hear the sermon in Jesus' word? I want to read a little more from the book here, chapter 1. Today, much of what we think make up a real church, and much of what we do today to serve Christ, is actually stealing from us our first love for Him we once had. The fire we had for Christ in the beginning is being stolen from us because we are focused so much on church instead of focus on Him and how we can obey Him. We sometimes forget that Jesus did not call us to build a big, beautiful churches with a lot of members. I'm not saying that it is a bad thing to have a place to meet and together with others, but I'm saying that this should never be the end goal. Jesus has called us to make disciples, where we baptize them and teach them to do all Jesus has commanded us. This is our life goal, and this is so clearly written in the Bible. Right in front of us. We can sit in our big, beautiful church with a lot of activities and still not fulfill the goal Jesus has given us. It is time to stop doing what we are doing and go back to what Jesus is calling us to do. Yeah, I know those words are very clear and very radical, but I just want to say that this is the truth. I've seen it so many times. I've seen so many people experience Jesus and are in love for God, and then they come into church and they're trying to serve, and they are so busy with activities and doing a lot of things that in all of this, trying to serve Jesus in that box, they suddenly lose the first love. They are burning out. They're getting tired. They're getting frustrated. Why? Because we do so much. We put so much into it. We spend so much money and we see so little fruit. And I've seen it so many times how people are losing that first love. I think it's time for reformation. It's time that we come back and do it the way Jesus is saying it. We can go one way as we have done. We can continue doing the way we have done it and see some fruit as we are seeing it. But I believe there is a better way. There is a way where we do it exactly the way Jesus has done it, where we lay down our vision, our plans, our goals, our idea of church and how to do church and how to make disciples, and then really take the time to look at Jesus and what he is saying. One of the things he's also saying is in Matthew 11:28-30. He said this, "Come to me, all of you who labor and are heavy laden, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lonely in heart, and you will find rest for your soul. For my yoke, it is easy and my burden is light." This is what Jesus is also saying, that his yoke is easy. He said we should come to him and find rest. Why do we see so many today get tired in serving Jesus and falling away? Why do we see so many pastors and leaders getting stressed and stop doing ministry? I've seen that again and again and again. Why do we see that when Jesus is saying this? Could it be because we are so busy doing other things that Jesus have actually called us to? I think so, because I've seen that again and again and again. There is a freedom in serving Jesus. There is a freedom in doing it his way. You don't have to be so full of activities. You don't have to cost so much money. You don't have to be so big a burden. The way Jesus has called us to do is so much more simple, is so much more easy, is so much more powerful, is so much more fruitful. So we need to again stop doing what we are doing and look at what Jesus is saying. Let me read a little more from the book. The truth is that today, 2,000 years after Christ was on earth, we are spending our time, our energy, and our money to get our churches to succeed. We spend our time, energy, and our money to get people to come to our church meetings. However, we do not do what Jesus told us to do. Maybe there is a reason we see so little fruit and why we see so many people losing their faith and their first love for God. We as Jesus' disciples have been fishing the whole night without catching anything, as Jesus' disciple did in John 21:3-6. Now it's time that we do what he says, that we act on his word. It is as simple as casting the net on the other side. Let's not focus so much on our church first, mission second, and Christ third. Let's start with Christ first, and then let him reveal the mission to us, and let the church unfold the way Jesus had planned. Amen. I want to encourage you to take the time, stop doing what you are doing, and then let's look at Jesus' word. What is it he has called us to do? What is it he has called you to do? Yes, many years ago I was guilty in what I'm saying here. I was guilty in doing church first, mission second, and Christ third. And I'm sorry to admit it, I was so busy in doing church and mission that I really forgot Christ. But then I took a time where I was really looking at Jesus' word. I was looking at what it was he was saying. And then I changed the way I did things. I started with Christ first. And I looked at him and his words. What is it Jesus is saying? What is it Jesus called us to do? How do he want us to do mission? And then I started to do mission. Not my way, not the church way, but Jesus' way. And it changed everything. The fruit was amazing. And then I saw that how Jesus was building his church. Whoa, I love it. The fruit is so amazing now. We are seeing the world transform. And it's not a heavy yoke. It's an easy burden to carry. It's so much different to do it Jesus' way. So I really want to encourage you to say yes to the call he has given. I know you will love it. I know you will see so much more fruit if you do it the way he has called you to do it. So I hope you are ready to say yes and follow him. And until next time we see, I want to encourage you to take some time and read Jesus' word in Matthew 10 and Luke 9 and Luke 10, where we read about how he sent out the 12 and how he sent out the 70. Read what Jesus was saying to the early disciples. Read what Jesus wanted them to do, how he called them to go out and do mission. Read Matthew 10, Luke 9 and Luke 10. And then ask yourself, am we in our church really building on the rock? Are we really obeying Jesus in his words and what we are reading here? Or are we so busy doing other things? Please do this. Listen to Jesus' words. Obey what he's saying. Instead of just being busy doing other things. And let's work together. And together we can come back and do what Jesus has called us all to do. And then let us see what Jesus is saying, that the harvest is ready. Let us see that there is a great harvest waiting for us right now. And let us make workers that are ready to go out in the harvest. And then let us find the person of peace Jesus is talking about. Something I'll talk much more about later. God bless you all out there. Please share this video and help other people to get the focus away from church first, mission second, and Christ third, and get back to Christ first. Christ, Christ, Christ alone, and then we do mission the way he has said, and then we end up with a church that will be so different, so powerful, so much like we read in the book of Acts. God bless you all out there. Share this video. See you next time. Bye bye.